It is 9:04 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the 23rd day of January 2026. This is episode 1242, I believe, is it? Yeah, 1242 of BitcoinAnd. Kansas seems to want their own strategic Bitcoin reserve. That is going to start us off here with all the news that you can use with me, your host, David Bennett, here on the BitcoinAnd podcast. We are talking about the news around Bitcoin and the rest of the macroeconomic world. And I'm sure at one point or another, we're going to end up talking about those idiots skiing with the hookers and the bags of cocaine over there in Davos, Switzerland. But if we do, it's probably going to be after we get into Ledger. Ledger is in the news. This is a company that has no ability whatsoever to keep their customers' data safe, and they want an initial public offering. We're going to talk about that and Coinbase. Coinbase to the rescue when it comes to quantum computing. They're forming an advisory board. Oh, thank God we're saved. And then we're going to move over to Asia, South Korea. Seems that the government may have lost some money in a phishing scam. Yeah, the government, not some people, not some residents, not some citizenry. No, the South Korean government seems to have been caught up in a phishing scam. We will get into that one. And then there's this Judge Rakoff. Gonna read a couple of things about this judicial rackets thing. Tor Eklund and Michael Hassard are writing a response in Bitcoin Magazine to this person named Judge Rakoff, and his opinion piece, I believe it was in the New York Times. So I'll talk a little bit about what the original opinion piece is, maybe read the first couple of paragraphs because that's honestly all we need. And then we're going to read this piece, this one from Bitcoin Magazine, that is the response to Judge Rakoff and what ends up being a fairly juvenile, very old set of arguments about Bitcoin. And, when people just don't get it, and they just refuse to get it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Farcaster. If you don't know what Farcaster is, it was or is, or I don't know if it's still that much of a thing. It was Ethereum's version of Nostr, kind of. That was their own social media thing. It seems to be being ejected. Somebody wants to get rid of it. Other people want to take it on, but it is in the news. So we'll talk about it. And then, do you remember ZBD? The gaming, Bitcoin gaming is what is sort of the realm that the company ZBD has been in. I've interviewed a couple of people from them, but that was years ago when they were just starting out. Well, it seems that they've kind of grown up, and we'll talk about that one too. And then at the very end of it, crypto bill has been delayed for months. And that's sort of what I thought was going to happen. So let's go to Kansas, where the corn is probably, well, the farmers are talking about how they're going to plant corn this spring, because that's what they grow in Kansas. Kansas got lots of corn over there in the Midwest. But they are introducing a bill to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And Micah Zimmerman kicks it all off with this one from Bitcoin Magazine. Kansas has become the latest U.S. state to explore a formal role for Bitcoin and digital assets in public finance, with lawmakers introducing legislation that would create a state-managed Bitcoin and digital asset reserve fund. The bill, introduced by State Senator Craig Bowser, proposes amending Kansas's unclaimed property laws, to explicitly recognize digital assets, including cryptocurrencies and virtual currencies, and also to establish a framework where their custody, management, and potential sale, or for their custody, management, and potential sale. If passed, the legislation would place oversight on the reserve with the Kansas State Treasurer. Under the proposal, unclaimed digital assets like Bitcoin would be transferred to the state after 3 years of inactivity following undeliverable written or electronic communication to the owner. Let me pause. If you hold Bitcoin the way that you're supposed to be holding Bitcoin, none of this applies. There's no way. See, sometimes I wonder if because this is not the first time that I've seen a state or a national entity talk about unclaimed property when it comes to Bitcoin. You know, what I believe they're talking about is like if you hold Bitcoin on an exchange and somehow or another they know that you have an account with that exchange and somehow you haven't done anything with that account for 3 years, then all of a sudden they get possession of the Bitcoin. I tend to ask myself the question if bills like this are being written not to honor Bitcoin, not because they actually want Bitcoin, but in a real roundabout way try to subjugate our confidence in Bitcoin. Because like I said, if you hold your own private keys, this shit can't apply. Let's continue. There is some ambiguity around what an unclaimed digital asset is, but the bill appears to apply only to custodial digital assets held by a legally defined holder, such as an exchange, a bank, a trust company, or some other licensed custodian, not to self-custodied wallets. Per the bill, the 3-year abandonment clock begins only after written or electronic communication to the owner is returned as undeliverable, and it stops immediately if the owner shows any sign of activity, including logging in or accessing another account with the same custodian. Unlike many traditional forms of unclaimed property, the bill allows these assets to be delivered and held in their native digital form rather than being immediately liquidated. The legislation also permits the state's designated qualified custodian to stake digital assets and receive airdrops subject to the direction from the treasurer. Any staking rewards or airdropped assets generated after 3 years would be transferred into the BTC and Digital Assets Reserve Fund, creating a mechanism for the state to accumulate digital assets over time. In a notable provision, the bill prohibits Bitcoin from being deposited into the state's general fund. Instead, Kansas would retain Bitcoin as part of its reserve, while directing 10% of deposits of non-Bitcoin digital assets into the general fund contingent on legislative appropriations. Supporters argue this structure treats BTC as a long-term reserve asset rather than a short-term revenue source. The bill also lays out how the state would handle the sale of digital assets. Cryptocurrencies that trade on established exchanges would have to be sold at market prices, while assets without active exchange listings could be sold using other commercially reasonable methods. The goal of all this is to minimize market disruption while adding clearer guardrails around how state-held digital assets are managed. If passed, the legislation would put Kansas alongside a growing number of U.S. states exploring how Bitcoin and other digital assets might fit into long-term financial and custodial strategies. In recent years, lawmakers, state lawmakers specifically across the country, have debated whether Bitcoin could serve as a hedge against inflation, a diversification tool, or a way to modernize public finance infrastructure. That's the end of the article, but spoiler, it does all three. Now let's go the fuck back upstairs into this article a little bit. First, what right does a state have to make an arbitrary temporal decision on when they can steal your shit? 3 years. So here's the scenario. You, for whatever reason, you put money on Kraken. You like take a half a Bitcoin and you throw it over to Kraken. Maybe you dabble in shit coinery. You get your ass handed to you on leverage. You decide to stop because it's just it's just shit coins are shit coins, and you're just going to get in trouble. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to cut my losses. I still got, 0.4 of a Bitcoin over there on Kraken. I'm just going to leave it there. And you have every right to leave it there. You have every right to put it on Kraken if you want. I don't think you should be putting it on exchanges, but hey, it's you. Let's say that's your deal. That's your right. You can put your property wherever the hell it is you want to put your property. So you decide to put it over on Kraken. Well, you live in Kansas and this bill has passed, and somehow or another, the state, I guess the treasurer, discovers, oh my God, we've got a Kansas citizen who hasn't logged into his Kraken account in 3 years. Well, in enough time for us to draft a letter and send an email to you and a certified letter in the United States Postal Service to your house, and you don't respond to either one of them. So the clock starts ticking. So 3 years, you never, after you get the letter, right? After you get the letter and you make no response or it comes back undeliverable, the state has a right to say, in 3 years from this day that we've discovered that email was not responded to or has become undeliverable, we start the clock. And 3 years from now, we're going to take your shit from Kraken. We're going to send a letter to Kraken, and our state's attorneys general is going to basically draft the letter and say, hey, Kraken, here's all the things. We sent the letter. It's 3 years. This is our state law. Give us the money. What right does a state have to do that? Where did that power come from? Why are we allowing this to occur? I understand that some of the intent behind these things is to somehow or another notify people that they may have unclaimed property. But the state being able to abscond with it just because some arbitrary temporal stricture was put on it, that's where I have a problem. Why 3 years? Why not 15? Right? And why do you get to keep it? And if somehow or another I find out after 4 years that I log into Kraken and it's like, holy shit, there's a notice, your shit is now owned by the state of Kansas, can I call the treasurer and get it back? It is technically my property. Except under this, they're talking about, well, no, it no longer is your property. That ownership transferred to the state of Kansas, and they're probably not going to give it back. Who decided this was a power of a state? And I do not have an answer for that. Not at all. It's distressing when I see things like this. Because again, and I want to reiterate, I wonder if these kinds of bills that are written this way with these kind of structures in place are actually designed to make people afraid of Bitcoin, to question its security model, and to basically sow fear, uncertainty, and doubt inside the very bill that on the surface looks like Kansas understands that they need Bitcoin too. Not the way this one's written. This is a poor bill, and hopefully it gets scuttled. Now, if they come back and say, hey, we want to be able to convert 2% of the state's tax revenues, like, I don't know if they've got a sales tax or whatever, into Bitcoin, and that goes into long-term storage with the state treasurer in the form of Bitcoin, I can get behind that. Stolen property, I cannot get behind. And I sure shit can't get behind freaking Ledger. I stopped using Ledger hardware wallets for Bitcoin years ago. Now, I just use CoinKite Cold Card. But Ledger, said to seek $4 billion IPO in New York, tripling its 2023 valuation, according to Financial Times. This is written by Oliver Acuna out of CoinDesk. Ledger, a French hardware crypto wallet manufacturer and a very poor steward of customer data, I might add, is planning an initial public offering on the New York Stock Exchange this year with a valuation of more than $4 billion, the Financial Times reported. The people familiar with the matter said Ledger is working with Goldman Sachs, Jefferies, and Barclays to facilitate an IPO as soon as this year. The company, founded in 2014, achieved a valuation of $1.5 billion in 2023 after a funding round involving investors such as True Global Ventures and 10T Holdings. Ledger CEO Pascal Gauthier, I guess is how you pronounce it, mentioned a possible IPO back in November when he told FT that as hacks hit an all-time high, so did his company's revenue, reaching hundreds of millions of dollars. On Thursday, BitGo, the digital asset custodial services provider, went public, pricing its own shares at $18 and closing up nearly 2.7% for a valuation of more than $2 billion. The company is the first crypto firm to go public this year, following a difficult stretch for publicly listed crypto companies due to Bitcoin price volatility. Several firms that went public in 2025 have underperformed over the past 6 months. Now, back to Ledger's IPO, that news comes just 2 weeks after the company has grappled with yet another breach involving a third-party payment processor, Global E, that exposed Ledger customers' potential personal details from Global E's cloud system. Back in 2020, if you don't remember, Ledger experienced a huge data breach that exposed 270,000 customers' data. And then again in 2023, Ledger lost nearly $500,000 to a hack, affecting several decentralized financial applications. These people have no business in an IPO. They cannot hold their data. They are unable to vet their third-party vendors for security, and their entire model is based around their customer security. Anybody investing in this company does not understand just how weak this company is and just what a risk it imposes, because they're going to suffer breach after breach after breach. And if you buy this shit at $10 a share, let's say it opens up, it IPOs at $10 a share, the company's valued at $10 billion, and then 6 months later, had 2 million people's personal data, including their home addresses, gets leaked. And then you start hearing about people actually being accosted at their homes by people who know they have cryptocurrency and they want it. Do you think that it's a good bet that the $10 price per share goes up or down? I think it's a good bet that it goes down. This is a terrible idea for the people that are thinking they're investing in a good company. They are not. Stay as far away from Ledger as you possibly can. Go get a cold card. If for whatever reason you have to do your shit coinery, then go get a Trezor. Do not trust Ledger with anything. Do not trust them with your shit coins. Certainly don't trust them with your Bitcoin. But moreover, do not trust them with your data. They have proven time and again that not only are they incompetent when it comes to digital security, they are, honestly, they just don't care about you. And when I find companies that don't care about their customers, I warn those people as much as I possibly can. Stay away from Ledger. I've had 3 of them. I will never use them again. I have not used them since 2021. Screw that entire company. And Qoinbase is also a company that I'm not exactly a fan of. However, thank God they've come to our rescue, because they're creating an advisory board to study quantum computing risks to Bitcoin. This is out of decrypt.co, written by Jason Nelson. As advances in quantum computing force blockchain developers to revisit long-standing security assumptions, Coinbase said on Thursday it is convening. They're going to convene an independent advisory board to address how to protect blockchains like Bitcoin and a couple of shitcoins from future quantum machines. While quantum computers capable of breaking modern cryptography don't exactly exist yet, researchers have warned that transitioning global financial and blockchain systems to new cryptographic standards could take years, prompting some firms to begin planning well before the technology becomes a reality. Pausing to say Y2K. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying this sounds oddly familiar. Quote, quantum computing is advancing. And while we don't believe it poses an imminent threat to crypto today, the reality is that upgrading global networks and security standards takes years. We're formalizing this advisory council now so that the ecosystem can plan early, evaluate the evidence responsibly, and coordinate on pragmatic steps that keep blockchain infrastructure resilient over the long term. End quote. The advisory board includes University of Texas at Austin professor Scott Aronson, UC Santa Barbara Foundations of FinTech Research Lab head Dalia Malki, Stanford cryptographer Don Bona, Ethereum Foundation researcher Justin Drake, University of Washington associate professor and EigenLayer founder Srimam Cannon, and Coinbase head of cryptography Yehuda Lindell. Let me pause one more time to say, honestly, that's kind of impressive. Credit where credit is due. These are not a group of yahoos. Even the Ethereum Foundation guy. I mean, look, I don't like Ethereum, but it doesn't mean that everybody that works on Ethereum is a moron. They're not. They're very smart people. I just think the roadmap is screwed and we don't really need it, but that's beside the point. Scott Aronson from UT. UT is a very good school. UC Santa Barbara is a very good school. Stanford, do I need to say it? Honestly, I'm genuinely impressed. I'm not being weird. I'm not being like, I don't know, what do they call it? Whatever the word is, where I'm trying to be the opposite. I actually mean I'm really impressed that they've got these people on board. So let's continue. I joined the advisory board because it sounded like an opportunity to provide factual guidance on something extremely important, and because they needed people who work in quantum computing, Professor Aronson told Decrypt. Coinbase said, the advisory board will publish papers assessing quantum-related risks, issue guidance for users and developers, and provide independent analysis following significant developments in quantum computing. Quote, no one actually knows how much longer we have until quantum computers are able to break current public key crypto systems, which could plausibly be anywhere from a few years to a few decades, Aronson added. Quote, what's clear is that we do need to be thinking right now about the transition to post-quantum crypto systems, and that we need the ability to react to future events as they happen, end quote. While today's quantum computers remain too small and unstable to threaten blockchain networks, developers no longer view the risk as purely theoretical. Bitcoin and shitcoin number one rely on elliptic curve cryptography, which researchers say could be broken by sufficiently powerful, error-corrected quantum machines using Shor's algorithm, allowing attackers to derive private keys from the public keys. In response, developers across major networks have begun exploring post-quantum cryptographic approaches and migration paths, including hybrid signature schemes and staged upgrades, even as they debate trade-offs around performance, coordination, and timing. Oh my God, here we go. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin has argued that protocols should adopt quantum-resistant cryptography well before the threat becomes practical, while others, including Cardano, including Cardano founders Charles Hoskinson, have warned that moving too quickly could significantly slow networks without adequate hardware support. And quantum researchers say the announcement reflects this increasing pressure on financial and technology firms to develop for post-quantum security as governments move to formalize new cryptographic standards. Anastasia Merchikova, a quantum researcher and advisor to post-quantum cryptography firm BTQ, told Decrypt the announcement follows growing questions about how Coinbase intends to approach quantum technology. Quote, so this is popping up, or this popping up was timely. I'm glad Coinbase is looking at it because this is really important for the longevity of cryptocurrencies, she said. She also said that while discussions about quantum threats are not new to crypto, they have taken on new urgency as regulators move to formalize post-quantum standards. She noted that skepticism remains, about the timelines for practical quantum computing, adding that this is not going to be an easy process. However, she said the advisory board's mix of academic and industry expertise addresses a central challenge of cooperation in post-quantum security planning. These aren't just Coinbase people. They're not just researchers. They're also cryptocurrency experts. That's important because one of the biggest challenges in post-quantum security is bringing together people who understand quantum computing with people who understand cryptography and real-world systems, end quote. As a publicly traded company, Coinbase's decision to openly address quantum risks carries weight in and outside of the crypto sector, Marchetkanova said, as banks and infrastructure providers increasingly incorporate post-quantum threats into their security planning. Quote, each additional person and entity that starts thinking about post-quantum security is another signal that people are considering it, she said, noting that Coinbase is a name even non-crypto people recognize, which can help bring the quantum conversation closer to everyday crypto users. Quote, if you're going to start looking into cryptocurrency, Coinbase is a name that pops up for everyone. This announcement is the first step towards saying this might actually affect you in some way, so let's start talking about it, end quote, and that is the end of the article. Okay. This, the language used by these people is actually kind of heartening, not disheartening, heartening. Why? Because the language is calm. The language is not studded with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And oh my God, like that fucking moron on Twitter that's like, I sold all my Bitcoin for gold because quantum. I don't even remember the dude's name. If you don't know who I'm talking about, it's probably not that important. But if you do know who I'm talking about, then you know what I'm fucking talking about. That's the kind of reaction that the post-quantum fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we've been laced with for the last few weeks, that's the effect, man. That's the effect. This, in as much as I don't like Coinbase, this is an excellent approach to post-quantum computing existence. But there's one problem that is always present in all of these stories about post-quantum and Bitcoin and or cryptocurrencies. It's what's not said. And here is what's not being said. If it relies on cryptography, most of which is asymmetric private-public key pair kind of cryptography, all of it is wrecked. It's not just Bitcoin, and it's not just cryptocurrency. It's everything, and they never say that. They never say, oh my God, Bank of America is putting together an advisory council for the post-crypto or post-quantum world, because if they don't, then all of your money, all of your fiat bullshit that you thought was safe in the bank is not safe, because they will be able to crack all of that. There's a movie, and I can't remember the name of it. It's not Three Body Problem. I want to say it's The Traveling Salesman. And I don't remember if that's the name of the movie, but there's this really famous mathematical problem called the traveling salesman problem. And in this movie, they talk about this problem, and it's actually a drama. It's not a documentary, so it's actually pretty good. But there's this scene where it becomes very clear what quantum computing might be able to do. The guy is trying to describe it to somebody else like, look, you've got a bank account, and I don't know what your bank account number is, But in a post-quantum world, I can find it. And the guy's like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. How? And he goes, okay, think of a desert of sand, like the Sahara Desert. I give you a coin, and I say, you have a week to go anywhere in this desert without me looking at you, without any trackers on you or the coin, and you can bury that coin as deep in the sand as you wish, anywhere you want, and not tell me about it. And then I'm going to find that coin using quantum computing. And the guy goes, okay, let's say that I've done that. Let's say that I've taken your coin and I've buried it somewhere in the Sahara Desert, which is huge, and you don't know where it is. How are you going to find it? And the guy looks at me and says, I'm going to turn all the sand into glass, and I'm going to see the coin. That's what they're talking about. But it's not just one coin. It's everybody's bank account. If you've got a Tesla car, that's secured by cryptography, right? The data connection between, the auto drive system and the actual shit, you hack that, all of a sudden you're doing 80 miles an hour into a tree and you have no control over it. So all your bank accounts, all of the automotive shit, planes in the air, helicopters in the air, war machines, anywhere that they're deployed could activate. Nuclear keys, all of this. These are all coins buried in the sand of the Sahara, and then like that, all the sand turns to glass. And instead of being opaque, it's all crystal clear. And you can just go get those coins. It's not just about Bitcoin. And this is what I really don't like about all of this, is that they never say that part out loud. It's about everything. Just please, for the love of God, keep that in mind. And then go over to my friend GreatGhee.com. That's GreatGhee.com. But this time, when you buy GreatGhee, use my affiliate link. Now, here's the thing about affiliate links. The affiliate link that I've got from Oshi, you need to get that from the show notes. Why? Well, because it's not really human readable. It's like Oshi.link / capital O, capital I, 4TQU. That's not really human. It's short. It's sure you could write it down, but if you're driving or gardening or washing the dishes, it's gonna be trouble. But I do appreciate very much that GreatGhee has given me a affiliate link so that when you use that link specifically to buy the greatest ghee you will ever buy, and we'll get to that here in a second, he will know instantly exactly where that sale came from. And then he'll get me back on the other side. So what is ghee? It's clarified butter. But this butter is grass-fed clarified butter. That's right. It's made from grass-fed butter in the southwest of Virginia, USA, in small batches. It's sourced exclusively from completely unvaccinated, grass-fed cows on regenerative agriculture, single-family owned farms, stored in American-made glass jars with American-made metal lids. Third-party lab tested by Light Labs. You have never cooked with a fat like this. How do you use it? Well, use it with anything you cook in a stainless steel or cast iron pan, roast in the oven, or that you sear on the grill. And if you are a fan of Indian food and you like making Indian food, then you know that you need ghee. This is the greatest ghee you're ever going to get. I love it. It's freaking phenomenal ghee. And I would buy more of it if it wasn't for the fact that I also like making my own ghee too, because I can control a lot of aspects about it, right? I can control how long I let it clarify, how hot I let it clarify. Do I go really low? Do I go really high? But GreatGhee's got if you've never used clarified butter, which by the way, you don't have to refrigerate, right? It's shelf stable. It's one of the great methods of food storage for animal fat that we've ever found. And you can I think the people in India for discovering that one, that you're going to want ghee. and it's delicious. It's got this nutty flavor. It's got a fullness to it. It's not just like putting butter on like toast or whatever, right? Or whatever you're going to cook with butter. It's different. It's still butter, but it just doesn't have any of the solids, any of the sugars, any of the residual water. It's just the animal fat portion of the butter. It's freaking glorious. Go get it at GreatGhee.com. That's GreatGhee.com. Go to the show notes. Use my affiliate link. If you just can't, always remember, if you can put it in there somewhere, use the code BitcoinAnd. That just will make sure that that he gets me on the backside with some sats. All right, so South Korea, $48 million in Bitcoin lost in a phishing scam. Atlas21.com has this one. South Korean authorities are dealing with a case in which approximately $48 million in Bitcoin are believed to have disappeared from wallets managed by the prosecution. What? Okay. The Gwangju District Prosecutor's Office. Oh, okay. They discovered the theft during a routine inspection of confiscated financial assets. According to reconstructions reported by local media, the shortfall amounts to roughly 70 billion won or $47.7 million worth of Bitcoin. Initial investigations revealed how the theft occurred. Apparently, an employee of the government agency reportedly visited a fraudulent website and fell victim to a phishing attack. I thought South Korea had their shit together. Anyway, the newspaper Chosun Daily reported that the criminals were able to access the funds after obtaining login credentials. The prosecution has opted to maintain strict confidentiality regarding the details of that investigation. Neither the exact amount stolen nor the timing of when the digital assets were originally confiscated has been disclosed. Quote, "We are conducting an investigation to track the circumstances and whereabouts of the seized items. We cannot confirm specific details," a prosecutor told Yonhap News. Despite this phishing incident, global data point to an improved trend. According to Scam Sniffer, in 2025, losses related to phishing attacks in the digital asset sector fell by more than 80%, dropping to a mere $83.85 million. The number of victims also declined by 70%, falling to a mere 106,000 people. Okay, so South Korean government prosecutor's office got phished. Damn. Let's run the numbers. CNBC futures and commodities. Brent North Sea crude up 2.6% to $65.74 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate up 2.6 as well to $60.94 a barrel. And natural gas is up. It was up almost 5% today, but now it's fallen back down. It's up a mere 0.69% to $5.08. And gasoline is up 2 points to $1.85 a gallon. And Murban crude, everybody's favorite light sweet crude, is up 1.75%, taking top spot in price again at $65.86. Metals are all in the green today. Palladium up 6%, gold up 1.5, another new all-time high, knocking on 5,000. Right, it's just right there, $4,986.06. Platinum is up 6.9%. Silver has breached $100 an ounce after a 5 1/5 point rise. $101.37. Holy shit. I never thought I'd see that. Copper is up 3 points as well. Ag is fully mixed today. Biggest loser is chocolate again, 6 points to the downside. I guess it's a bumper crop for chocolate or nobody's eating it. I don't know what the hell's going on there. But biggest winner today is wheat, 2 points to the upside. Meanwhile, live cattle up 1.25% to the upside. Lean hogs are down 1/3. Feeder cattle are up 2/3. And S&P is up 0.1. NASDAQ is up 0.5. The Dow is down 0.5. I guess President Trump said something at Davos. S&P Mini is down also 0.94%. 0.8%. And then we got Bitcoin, which is rattling around $90,000 again, 90,710. Gives us a $1.81 trillion market cap. We can only get 18.1 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,979,598.03 of. Yeah, try to do that with tracking ounces of gold and silver. 0.02 BTC taken in fees on a per block basis. There are about 10 blocks carrying a measly ass 10,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear. High priority rates, 3 sats per VByte. Low priority get you in at 0.8. Still above 1 zettahash for hash rate on the Bitcoin network. 1.04 zettahashes per second is in fact what we have. And from beef.com, yesterday's episode of BitcoinAnd, I got Nostergang with a row of sticks says TY, which stands for thank you. And Pies with 1,210 says, had to come out of my boosting break to show my man Dave some love. Stop being cheap, y'all. V4V. Another way to say value for value. If you're listening, boost this man. One of the most informative Bitcoin podcasts out there, doing it with no sponsors, LFG. That's right. I'm doing it with no sponsors, which could either mean that I suck or that I'm psychotic. It's possible to be both, I suppose. Nick Dose with 135 says, cheers. Well, cheers. Permanerd with 210 says, gaskets are popping here, man. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. There's a guy. He's a judge. His name is Judge Rakoff. And I guess he's an actual judge. It's not like that actor's name, Judge whatever, Judge Reinhold. That's what the kid got named Judge. Could you imagine walking around and your first name is Judge? That would actually be kind of hard. Poor kid. Anyway, this isn't a kid. This is a grown fucking man. And he literally has no concept of what Bitcoin is. So we're going to do this in 2 parts. Tor Eklund and Michael Hassard are writing commentary on Judge Rakoff's opinion piece for the New York Times. And they're writing for Bitcoin Magazine. So it seems like logical, right? What the hell is this opinion piece? I cannot stomach reading you the whole thing. So let's just read the first 2 paragraphs. I absolutely believe that you're going to get the gist of what Mr. or rather Judge Rakoff has to say. The piece is entitled, oh, by the way, this is the New York Review of Books. I don't know why it's in here, but it is what it is. It's entitled, It's a Racket. The Oxford English Dictionary defines cryptocurrency as any of various digital payment systems. Pause. You're not in college. You're not in high school. You're not in elementary school. You're not in junior high school either. No, you're a grown-ass man. And every single time a grown-ass man or woman starts out a piece of writing with a definition and then give the name of the dictionary, I know that I'm dealing with somebody that has the mental capacity of a 6th grader. I'm sorry. And if this is terrible writing, this is my wife as a writing professor of writing, not of fiction, but of like, how do you write technical reports? How do you write a clear email? How do you impart the ideas that you have in your head in the clearest format possible? How to write arguments, how to do all that kind of writing, not like, oh, Rose was in the garden and butterflies were. No, not that kind of fucking writing. when you're trying to make a statement, when you're trying to get an idea across and you write it down, what you do not do ever under any circumstances for any fucking reason whatsoever is to start the first goddamn line of your shit with the Oxford English Dictionary defines X as. That is terrible writing. If you write that way, please stop doing it. Please stop, for the love of God. It makes you look like you are literally in junior high school. If you're in junior high school and you're listening to this, God only knows why, but it's okay for you. You're learning how to write. Don't feel bad. Hopefully you'll lose that habit. But I already have serious issues with the mental capacity of Judge Rakoff. Okay, I'm already done with this asshole. But he did write this back in December 18 of 2025, so it's not just coming out. Okay, so off the soapbox, I'm sorry, but that's huge. You cannot write this way and be found to be competent in polite circles. Let's just call it that way. Cryptocurrency is defined as any of various digital payment systems operating independently of a central authority and employing cryptographic techniques to control and verify transactions. Well, this definition captures the goals of cryptocurrency advocates to provide an accepted digital currency for the purchase and sale of goods and services that assure freedom from government oversight of transactions. Were such a system ever to become widespread, the effect on the regulation and stabilization of national economies might be devastating. Since banking agencies such as the Federal Reserve depend heavily on monetary policy, which is control of the liquidity of a nation's currency and the interest rates at which it is offered in order to reduce inflation and increase employment. So, basically bolstering the dual mandate of the Federal Reserve, even though there is a third and hidden mandate. We've talked about it before. Well, let's not do it here. In practice, however, cryptocurrency has so far largely failed to achieve its goal of widespread consumer use. For the great majority of goods and services continue to be purchased and sold in dollars or other regulated national currencies. Cryptocurrency has, though, to a remarkable extent, achieved its goal of being comparatively free of serious government regulation, and as a result, it has often become a vehicle for fraud and, of course, criminality. An examination by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the New York Times, and other news organizations found that, quote, at least $28 billion tied to illicit activity has flowed into crypto exchanges over the last 2 years. Margaret Shockey, the international policy director at Stanford University's Cyber Policy Center, recently wrote, quote, perhaps the most avid users of cryptocurrencies have been a group that explicitly values their opaque nature, criminals. Past cases, both civil and criminal, brought in my court and elsewhere tend to confirm this observation. That's the only two things of this piece of shit that is before me now. And that's all. He's already demonstrated on several fronts a complete ignorance of what the hell's going on. And I'm going to say it for myself. This criminality issue down here at the bottom of the second paragraph, that has already been debunked several times. So he's just feeding us back the original FUD that we've already have been done with. He hasn't gotten the memo yet. This is a judge who doesn't actually do any judicial research when it comes to the opinion pieces he wants to publish. Bad on him. Okay, so judicial rackets. Judge Rakoff and the fear of monetary exit. That is the title of Bitcoin Magazine's Tor Eklund and Michael Hazard's piece that is a response to this pile of garbage. Judge Jed Rakoff's essay, It's a Racket, reads less like analysis than a confession. He opens with a dictionary definition of cryptocurrency and proceeds to explain why systems that operate outside government control are dangerous. This framing reveals the core assumptions beneath the essay. Money is legitimate, only when it's sanctioned, supervised, and reversible at the discretion of the state. Bitcoin exists because that assumption failed. The Genesis block of the Bitcoin blockchain contains a timestamp referencing the 2008 bank bailouts. It marks the moment the modern financial system exposed itself as a closed hierarchy enforced by regulation, complexity, and rescue. Losses were socialized. Accountability vanished. Courts enforced the aftermath. Bitcoin was created to exit that system. Rakoff repeatedly treats, quote, crypto as a monolith, collapsing decentralized networks, centralized frauds, meme tokens, and algorithmic stablecoins into a single object of derision. This is not analysis, it is rhetorical convenience. The Terraform Labs fraud he describes depends on secrecy, centralization, and false representations, the very features Bitcoin was designed to eliminate. Rakoff describes Bitcoin as gambling untethered to economic reality. But his definition of economic reality is faith-based, central bank discretion, elastic supply, and, of course, institutional trust. Bitcoin rejects those premises. It imposes a fixed supply. It makes money debasement impossible. It exposes failure instead of masking it. That is why central planners hate it. I watched the regulated financial system collapse in 2008 from inside a New York law firm. The catastrophe occurred not in unregulated back alleys, but in the most supervised institutions on earth. When it ended, almost no one responsible was punished. Courts enforced the settlements. Central banks created money to paper over the wreckage. Bitcoin refuses that bargain. Rakoff leans heavily on blockchain surveillance claims, asserting vast criminality. These claims rest on inference, not proof. The surveillance industry is unregulated, unvalidated, and commercially motivated. Yet courts increasingly treat its output as scientific fact. This is junk science with a badge. The Silk Road prosecutions revealed the real anxiety. Ross Ulbricht proved Bitcoin was money. Goods and services could indeed be exchanged without permission from banks or governments. His punishment was exemplary, not proportional. It was meant to deter autonomy. Courts have always played this role. They enforced slavery. They upheld internment. They validated sterilization of humans. They ratified segregation. Judicial neutrality, it's a myth told by the winners of each era. Rakoff laments that regulation of cryptocurrency is being scaled back. What he calls deregulation, others call recognition. That Bitcoin cannot be regulated into submission without destroying the liberties it restores. Tens of millions of Americans now hold Bitcoin. Institutions that once mocked it now custody it. A potential constituency has formed around monetary sovereignty. That constituency is done asking for permission. Rakoff calls Bitcoin a racket because it escapes the racket he knows: discretionary money, regulatory capture, and judicial enforcement of economic orthodoxy. Bitcoin does not ask courts for legitimacy. It derives legitimacy from use. The Genesis block was not a marketing flourish, it was a declaration. The old system failed, a new one appeared. Courts can sneer, but code does not care. That's the end of that response to Judge Rakoff's pile of shit. We're never going to be done fighting this. As it's said, and I don't know who came up with this, progress happens one funeral at a time. And while it's not becoming of another human to wish death upon another human, I do wish that these people were herded off of a very tall cliff, all at once in a great big group, Like I said yesterday, like the Indians used to do with the buffalo. Of course, the Indians would, get all the hides off of them. They would gut them for their offal. They would, plant the intestines or whatever into gardens. They would get all the meat. They would dry it out. Nothing went to waste. They made tools from the bones of the dead. It wasn't like they were just driving them over the cliff to kill them and leave them in a pile of rot. No. It was just a very efficient means of getting a lot of meat all at one time. And in my case, I look at people like Judge Rakoff not really as actual human beings. Why? A, because I have every right to look at anything I want to that way. And second of all, he does not act like a human being. He is defending a system that has brought nothing but pain and degradation upon millions and billions and billions, much more than 8 billion people. Why? Because I'm including all of the illegitimacy and all the crap that was ever perpetrated on people that lived before. The people that are now no longer with us, they were fucked too. They were stolen from as well. They were degraded in just the same format and fashion that we are being degraded now by the very people like Judge Rakoff. Do I mean actually go out, wait for his ass at his front door and beat the snot out of him? No, I do not actually mean that. Why? Because I don't want you getting in trouble. And that's the only fucking reason why. I don't want anybody getting in trouble because, you told me to go do it. No, I did not tell you to go do it. And the reason I'm telling you to stay away from that shit is that I don't want you in trouble. He's not worth it. Celebrate this motherfucker's death when he's in the ground, but don't cause it. Because you have a family to run. You've got a life to live, and you don't need some dipshit like this walking around. And I'm not mad at him because he's bad-mouthing Bitcoin. I'm really looking at what he's saying about his belief in the monetary system that we have today. And everybody within the sound of my voice knows that it's bullshit. It is a fucking casino, and all the rules basically enable the house to win every time, like any other casino on the face of the planet. But a national economy, a global economy, should not be a casino. It should, if it's going to do anything, it should further the human race. What does that actually mean? We're happier. We're surrounded by more beauty that we create ourselves. That we have access to tools and technology and food that make us feel so good to be on this planet for the short time that we are here. Where we are not inundated with fear, uncertainty, doubt, and negativity to the point that we can't enjoy the very existence of our children and just be happy. No. Why? Because of people like Judge Rakoff, because of people like Nancy Pelosi, because of, okay, I'm going to say it, people like Trump. Because he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't really care. I know everybody, you hate Trump, you must like Biden. No, because Biden's a bigger piece of shit than Trump. If you got to have it that way, have it that way. But Lindsey Graham, a war criminal. Sorry. Bush, war criminal. Which one? Both of them. I actually kind of liked Reagan, but he was into some nasty shit himself. And God only knows what's going on with John F. Kennedy. Was he really having an affair with Marilyn Monroe? Did he have her off? I don't know. None of these people act like actual humans, or at least the way that are going to act like humans in a way that enable other humans to be better. It just enables them to be worse. And it's because of that if all of these people were absconded with by the most evil aliens that you will ever find, and that their continued existence is going to be nothing but misery and pain until the day they die somewhere off planet, I would be fine with it. I wouldn't blink a tear. I would go on about my day looking forward to being happy. Fuck this guy. Farcaster, to repay $180 million to venture backers, says the protocol is not shutting down. So, okay, pal. The Block has this one. It's written by Timmy Shin. The company behind decentralized social protocol Farcaster plans to return the full $180 million that it raised from venture capital investors, according to co-founder Dan Romero, as the project transitions into a new phase. Let's just calm down. What is a new phase? Farcaster, we got Nostr, which is freaking great. And then here comes Farcaster, the Ethereum version that nobody uses, yet got so much money to develop. Do you see a trend here? Look, nobody gives any money to Bitcoin developers. Well, not nobody. OpenSats definitely does, and Square does, and the Human Rights Foundation does. But for the most part, venture capitalists, no. I mean, Jack Dorsey is the only one that could be considered amongst that group. But otherwise, no. No, they give it to the shittiest shitcoin projects they possibly can and their developers. And they did it here with the Ethereum version of a decentralized social protocol. And it's a piece of crap that nobody uses. Yet Nostr guys basically keeping their head above water by just, eating ramen. Yet we use that shit all the time. And here it is, the $180 million that came to the Farcaster jokers. Now they got to give it back. Just use Nostr, guys. In a Thursday post on X, Romero said that Merkle Manufactory, the firm behind Farcaster, plans to repay investors in full following the sale of the protocol to Ninar. So they guess they got rid of it. A decentralized social media infrastructure firm backed by Juan Ventures. As for Merkle, this is a quote, "We're planning to return the full $180 million raised back to investors over the last 5 years. We tried to be a good steward of investor capital." Okay, well, what happened, Romero? Those comments follow Ninar's announcement earlier this week that it was buying Farcaster with plans to shift the protocol toward a more developer-focused direction. I don't know what that means. In his Thursday post, Romero addressed speculation about Farcaster's future, noting that the protocol will continue to operate. Quote, "We're not shutting down. The protocol works and will continue to work," said Romero. And then he added that Farcaster recorded about 250,000 monthly active users in December and has more than 100,000 funded wallets. Whoop-de-doo. Several investors publicly confirmed the repayment plan, including former Coinbase executive Balaji Srinivasan, I can never pronounce his name, an early Farcaster backer. And in a separate post on X, he said that Farcaster investors would receive their capital back, backing Romero's statement that Merkle Manufactory plans to return the full $180 million raised. Quote, "The tech is real and it works," Srinivasan said, adding that protocols can take longer to mature than traditional startups. He also said the handover to Ninar would help Farcaster move closer to its long-term goal of deeper decentralization. Well, honey, you don't start off centralized and then move to decentralization. You're either there from day one or you're not. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Merkle Manufactory was founded in 2020 by Romero and Vron Srinivasan and is backed by a major venture firm, including A16Z, Crypto, as well as Paradigm. And Farcaster was last valued at a reported $1 billion. A $150 million Series A round in 2024 caused that valuation. It was one of the largest Web3 funding deals of that year. And yet people use Nostr more. It's just a fact. I actually looked at Farcaster and it's just a mess. So they're having to give all the money back. They're apparently going to try to decentralize it. I don't know. If I were you, I wouldn't waste my time on it. Moving on, Bitcoin payment startup ZBD raises $40 million to build gaming payment rails. This is Micah Zimmerman from Bitcoin Magazine. ZBD has raised $40 million in a Series C, not A, not B. They've already been through those. This is their third round of funding as it looks to expand blockchain-based payment infrastructure for the video game industry, according to Fortune magazine. The New Jersey-based company, which provides payment software for game developers, was led in the round by Blockstream Capital. The crypto investment firm contributed $36 million, according to co-founder Simon Cowell. Cowell declined to disclose the company's valuation. The platform allows video game developers to integrate payments directly into games, enabling transactions such as peer-to-peer transfer, loyalty rewards, and Bitcoin payouts without relying on third-party fintech providers. Quote, we're talking about a payment solution for the entire gaming industry that actually really enables them to have a direct financial relationship to the player, Cal said. The fundraise comes at a time when enthusiasm for crypto gaming is kind of cooled. Once touted as a major use case for blockchain technology, crypto-based gaming, particularly NFT-driven models, have struggled. ZBD has deliberately avoided said NFTs and crypto-native gameplay, instead focusing just on payments, an area that has seen more concrete adoption, especially as stablecoins gain attention from firms like Stripe and banks, including JP Morgan Chase, according to Fortune. Founded by Cal alongside Andre Neves and Christian Moss, ZBD centers its technology on Bitcoin rather than stablecoins. However, the company positions itself as a broader payments provider, allowing developers to keep users within their ecosystems rather than routing transactions through external services. While the startup is not yet profitable and declined to share revenue figures, Cal said the company worked with 55 games in the year of 2025 alone and currently employs 70 people. Damn, that's really impressive. ZBD integrated Bitcoin rewards into Tap Nation's mobile game Idle Bank last year, marking the first mainstream mobile game to deliver Lightning Network payouts, which boosted 30-day player retention by 355% and the revenue per player by 124%. And if you're in the gaming industry, those are rather effective attention-grabbing numbers. The company, originally testing Bitcoin rewards with a modded Counter-Strike server, developed an SDK and API that allow game developers to seamlessly add Bitcoin rewards while addressing cybersecurity and fraud concerns. ZBD's model turns ad revenue into Bitcoin payouts for players, increasing engagement and monetization, and has already driven significant growth for games like Bitcoin Miner. So there's the ZBD news. And ZBD has been in the game for years, and I interviewed Christian Moss back when I was living in Canyon, Texas. I mean, that's like 5 years ago, dude. So he was one of the very first people that I ever interviewed for the BitcoinAnd podcast, and I am really happy to see that ZBD has just grown. I haven't heard anything out of them for like months, and yet here they are, still kicking ass. But just to put a nail in the coffin, let's finish up today and this week with crypto bill delayed several months as the Senate pivots to Trump's housing initiatives. Yay, distraction. Micah Zimmerman and Bitcoin Magazine. The sweeping U.S. Senate effort to establish a comprehensive legal network or framework for cryptocurrency trading and oversight is likely to be pushed back for weeks or even months after key legislative momentum stalled this week in the wake of major industry backlash. The Senate Banking Committee indefinitely postponed work on its long-anticipated market structure bill after Qoinbase, one of the industry's largest exchanges, publicly withdrew its support. The withdrawal came at a crucial moment before a scheduled markup hearing where lawmakers would have debated amendments and potentially advanced the bill toward a floor vote. With Qoinbase no longer backing the legislation as written, the committee shifted its immediate focus to other priorities, including housing affordability initiatives tied to President Donald Trump's agenda. Industry insiders say the delay could stretch into late February all the way to March, according to Bloomberg. Lawmakers wrestling with unresolved policy disputes and are trying to rebuild bipartisan consensus in a sharply divided Senate. Yeah, good luck with that. Several factors are contributing to the slowdown. Coinbase withdrawal of support following CEO Brian Armstrong's decision shows that there are some deep divisions between crypto firms and portions of the bill's drafters, mainly around stablecoin rewards, and industry leaders argue that provisions in the current text could weaken the Commodity Futures Trading Commission's authority, restrict decentralized finance, and curtail stablecoin rewards, which are measures widely viewed as essential to continued crypto innovation. So the stablecoin bill and the Clarity, well, not Clarity Act, but this regulation bill is stalled until freaking February or March, and I honestly don't think it's going to be done then either. I don't think they're as serious about it now as they were because everybody's affected by price. So who knows what the hell's going to happen? But I know what's going to happen here. I'm going to get my happy ass up. I'm going to warm up a cup of coffee, and I'm going to see you on the other side. This has been BitcoinAnd, and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.